Most of the conversations today around social media and mental health are not social media phenomena. They are real life phenomena. If you're depressed because you're consuming too much on social media, possibly you're depressed because you're depressed because your life's not in the right track, or if you're
this is like a catalyst.
Exactly. So yeah, I think there's a great Gary Vaynerchuk saying. He says, social media doesn't change you, it exposes you. So I actually believe in that, and I think being on both sides, to consuming, to creating things
Curating,
that act as catalyst to consumption, I sort of know both sides of how it works. I think the businesses will always try to make more money, and social media is the easiest path to do that. They will continue to amplify and figure things out on it. So there's no real, hack around it, apart from just drawing a line for yourself and saying this is what I do and this is what I don't. So I really think conversation around that would be great.
That was Saanand Warrier. He's the founder of Virality, a digital marketing firm. He started this a while ago and formed a team around his company and has worked with multiple clients, the likes of Corner House, Akshay Kalpa, Cred, and so many more. This episode's a little more meta, it's a little more abstract, where the topics and the conversations a little more around social media and how it impacts everyone and the right ways to market yourself. We talk about how content creators, individuals or groups can really put themselves out there, really create an impact and cut through the noise. We also talk about how you as a person need to be very purposeful and mindful of your social media consumption, especially in today's day and age when there's just a mindless and endless scroll of feed, and how these platforms are constantly fighting for your attention. You need to ensure that you are being very particular about the sort of people you follow, the sort of content that you're looking for, and the reason itself why you're on the platform in the first place. We also go into how personal brands differ from company brands, and how the former, that is personal brands, are at a smaller advantage, and how you can take small steps to ensure that you kind of leave a mark and create the sort of impact that you're looking for. But having said all this, nothing beats quality, because the entire idea of content creation, the entire idea of really making it with content itself, is to ensure that you're delivering something that people are looking for and that is of quality. So if you don't have quality, then you can just forget about all the other things, because that is literally the bare minimum and something that's going to really set you apart from the noise and everyone else around there. There's just so much value to take away from this episode, especially if you're one who mindlessly scrolls through social media or by default just opens up a social media app, because I know for a fact I've been there. Then I think this might give you some sort of a push, or I'd say some kind of a compass or the right kind of direction, and maybe give you the insight you need to be a little more purposeful and mindful about the consumption side. Before we jump into the episode though, I'd love it if you could leave a comment below talking about which your favorite episode has been till date. And if in case you're tuning into the episode over audio, then consider dropping me a message on Instagram, because I'm super active there too. All right then, let's get right into the show. This is Saanand Warrier. Yeah, dude, what do you want to talk about?
Tell me anything, you start.
No, so I think more often than not in the episodes, I usually go into what the person's journey is been like, and how they've kind of gotten here. But this time, let's take a little bit of a different approach, especially because you're, I think, getting your hands dirty with marketing firsthand, right, and social media and whatnot. Let's slowly dive into what individuals can do today when it comes to marketing, things that maybe how things that they're doing should probably be impacted by the algorithm and vice versa. and how they can compete with companies. Because ever since I got into pushing the podcast content out there, right, I've been interacting with a lot of these individual content creators, and they've been talking about how Instagram's completely changed the algorithm, and looking at content creators who are pushing regular content, or maybe 10-15 stories a day, or looking at pushing maybe 2-3 posts a day. So how do people who are in that space really compete with the guys who are the big guns? How do you kind of go about
Firstly, I don't think you should get into the competition mode, because it's a losing battle, because they have deep pockets.
Okay,
so you're never going to be able to compete. I think the differentiator really is quality of content.
Okay.
I think it's always been quality of content. So if you are a creator, and I think the idea, if you're a creator, should be that you should love the art of creation. And if you love the art of creation, then you won't be bothered about anything else, and you just keep creating. The real secret to success on becoming a creator on the internet, at least from what I've seen, is the fact that you have to create content at a very, very high scale for a very long period of time, so that you basically are relevant, and people can reach out to you, or rather reach out to your channel and absorb your content for whatever they want. The more you do, the larger the fan following you will have. And then the platforms don't have a choice but to, push you a little bit more, because fundamentally, if you look at YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, their goal is simple, which is they want people to create content that retains audiences on the platform. And on the back of that, they're going to sell ads. So you have to just create content that caters to that, agenda of these large firms or the platform owners, and you're good. That's it. But the key to that is to be consistent and to keep doing it. Like you're on the journey now.
Yeah.
You'll figure it. You'll have to do a lot.
Dude, so we'll obviously get into the topic of how this whole thing is so intrusive and how it cuts into your daily lives, and you just are always hooked on your phone. You wake up, you're checking the feed. You wake up, you're checking whether the notifications. I mean, everyone is, right? And with shows like Social Dilemma and all these coming out right now, I think it's always, like, it's been a factor that's always been there. But of late, people are trying to be a little more, let's say, purposeful with their consumption, if you want to call it that. And I think the West has already figured that out, or at least seen that happening from quite a few years. But India right now, there's so many more people. There's so many more people who want to push content as well. There's so many more people who are just there to consume. So how do you kind of be a little mindful about it is one aspect. But at the same time, because there's so many creators, how do you really cut through the noise? Because like you said, it's to kind of keep it consistent. It's to kind of keep at it for some time and kind of play it to the benefit of what these platforms are expecting out of you, right? So how, let's say a person who's a small timer, not even competing against a big player, but looking at competing against another small timer, how can they differentiate themselves apart from just the quality aspect?
I don't think there's an answer to all questions in one line, right? There's no one answer that fits, that serves or tackles all questions. I think the key is this, which is consistency is one thing, but what happens essentially with every platform is the fact that sooner or later they all get cluttered. So if you're creating content here, I'm sure that there were about thousands of other podcasters before you, right?
Of course.
Doing it, and hence, yeah. So tomorrow, I'm pretty sure there'll be someone else starting out something new, and that process is never ending. Which means every platform is going to keep getting. I don't want to use the word cluttered, but that is the term right now in terms of the kind of content and the volume of it that's available. Yeah. I think you have to bring your unique personality to it. See, there's a huge difference between personal brands and corporate brands, right? Personal brands actually built on personality. So whatever you do, at the end of it, there's a layer of personality that actually propels or makes, it's the differentiator.
Kind of
so you have to focus
apart.
on that. Yeah. So I'm sure if someone's watching the Ranveer show or Joe Rogan and then watching you, I'm pretty sure they're getting different things out of it. And you have to figure out what is it that a user relates to you with, or a viewer relates to you with, and how do you get them to keep coming back. I think you have to, like I said, consistency is one answer, but at the same time, you also have to be smart. You have to figure out what are the new trends. So the funny thing with all the algorithms is that they keep changing every year. So you have to be at the forefront of it to figure out what's working and what's not. I think TikTok was a great answer for a lot of people because of the ridiculous organic reach it gave. Our office boy is a big TikTok star. Right. He clocks 500,000 views.
Wow.
A day, right? And that's crazy. So if someone's able to do that, which means there's some potential and merit in that platform. Yeah. But unfortunately now that's gone. So you got to figure out what's the next TikTok. And there's something coming out every day.
Yeah.
So you really have to just be very aware, be very well read, and then also I would say if you can, just start using paid media. if you can start promoting your content on Instagram, Facebook, I think it's just beautiful in terms of the results it can give you, in terms of reach it can give you.
How so?
We have a term called CPM. It's basically a cost per 1,000 impressions.
Right.
What does it take for you to reach 1,000 people? On Instagram, if you're just starting out without any understanding of how to optimize awareness ads, that we call it, you can get it for like $60.
Okay.
So $60 you can reach 1,000 people. That's the basis. So you start calculating from there. I know cases of, we've had cases of brands where at work I've got it to like 2 rupees, 3 rupees, and it fluctuates. It can work in different ways. It depends on what kind of content you have, how good is it, are people watching it. The minute the content starts to trend, then the algorithm itself pushes it up because they want everyone to watch it.
Of course.
So that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So so as soon as you can leverage paid media, do so, because I think as a personal brand you want. So the funny thing with paid media is paid media gives you reach. Reach builds audience. Audience means you can monetize your content. So it's a loop.
So you're saying get to that loop as quickly as possible.
So you got to figure where in the loop can you start actually, and then just accelerate it. So, and that's simple. That's the answer.
And that's basically what these platforms want you to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
They want you to spend money on it.
Yeah.
So that you get more eyeballs on it, and then they will sell that to the
other eyeballs.
Yeah, the other eyeballs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I facilitate that. So.
Yeah. No, because it's a vicious cycle, if I have to put it lightly. Because the part where you said you finally reached that point where you can monetize, it's basically the reverse of what you're doing in the initial stages anyway, right? It's someone else who's kind of getting their content out there and they get paid. I mean, you get paid because of the same thing. So,
but it doesn't always have to be that way, because once you build a consistent and relevant audience, what you can then do is launch your website, for instance, start hosting your videos there. Then you basically control the audience that comes to it. You would still need help with social media for distribution. But if you're like, for example, I think Joe Rogan's done something, right? He's moved away from
all the
YouTube.
platforms.
Yeah, I think the GRE clips still come on YouTube, but
that's still the end of the year.
Yeah.
So after that, it's completely off YouTube.
Exactly.
Is what I've
So it's gone to Spotify, and that's because everyone, like Spotify, knows that the audience will move with him. Yeah. And so that's the kind of leverage you want as a creator, where you can.
That is just a ridiculous leverage.
Ridiculous deal. I mean, and the funny thing is, he's been doing this for what, 20 years or more than that. And he's in some, what's his episode numbers? They go into 1,000, 2,000?
1,500 or so. I don't know.
Exactly.
Probably
so
more.
He's been doing it for so long, right? And that's the key. So people read the headlines today saying, 100 million deal with Spotify, and they don't realize the fact that
how much thought has gone into this.
How much effort has gone into it. The fact that he started it 20 years ago. So it takes that long in the internet space to make it, but not so much today.
Yeah.
I think if you look at some of the later versions and young creators, I can't call Jordan in young creators, but they're probably one example that we can all relate to, being from the same city. I think they've done it really well. They're doing it really, really well. I think that's down to creativity again, and figuring out your niche. Because I think there are too many people doing motivation, there are too many people doing life hacks, there are too many people doing business related.
And what about vlogs?
I think vlogs are hard.
Yeah,
vlogs are
but
very hard.
There are a lot of people doing that.
Yeah,
right?
again, so but then you can do vlogs in anything, right? So there's opportunity there as well. So you want to see someone doing something very unique.
Yeah.
That's something that's not there now. I think possibilities are endless, to be honest. And the best part about the internet is it just level playing field for everybody. So you can literally start doing anything, and it will develop into a niche of its own.
Yeah.
So I think
the barrier of entry is the key thing here, right? It's so easy to get your content out there, and like you said, at the cost of what, $60, you get in front of 1,000 people.
It's not for everyone, just say.
Yeah, no, but still, I mean, that's one example. Yeah. So, and you're saying it falls as low as,
Could
single or double digits. Yeah. So, it's also how do you kind of figure this out, not just from the, let's say, engagement side, because people are like, let's not get carried away by numbers, because you get into that whole cycle. That's a different vicious cycle altogether. You worry about likes, you worry about reach, all of that. But there's this one type of content creator, or let's say, if you want to call it the Gary Vee mentality, right? Like people are just like hustle, and you just do your bit. Yeah, that's it. Just keep going at it and you'll get there. Don't worry. Just put your head down, do the work, and you'll get there. That's one aspect of it. But there's no denying that these numbers also play a big role to some extent, right? So how do you find that balance? I mean, it's a very weird place to be, right?
I think that's down to each personality. I don't think, again, there's an answer to that. The whole hustle mentality works, by the way, but you can't just hustle. You have to be smart too. And you have to know what are the battles you want to pick, where you think you will win, and what are the things that you should let go of. I think that's where most people get it wrong. And I've had, I know so many people who are in that mindset of hustle. I think I was too in my own way, but I think I didn't probably term it hustle or call it. But I like to occasionally post videos on Instagram, when I'm at 2 a.m. in the office. There's a thrill to that, and I like to say it's the hustle.
Hashtag 2 a.m.
Yeah, and it's a good fun. Like sometimes you like to do it, but I think hustle is great. But I think the problem that social media gives you is that you have to be very focused. You have to be singular-minded because there are too many people doing similar things to what you're doing. Very easily you'll get carried away. You'll start seeing someone, posting pictures of certain amount of success that they are achieving, and then you're suddenly thinking, oh shit. You start comparing. That's the worst, right? Like I've had so many cases of people that I've come across in my life that are sort of in that phase, and it happens to most people in the 20s. I think the key answer to
not
that...
even 20s, right? Even teens now.
Teens especially. I think we have less context to that. I'm hiring a lot of young people in the office these days. Just graduates. It's fascinating the way they use social media. I think they're just...
on the consumption side, you're saying?
Both.
Okay.
In terms of consumption and deployment. Okay. So you might work with award-winning advertising folks, at least for the way I look at it, right? But someone who's just out of college, 21, is 10x better than them at Instagram. And they know how to it's very different. So I think being born in a generation that started using smartphones at the age of 11 or 12, whenever they started, even younger probably, right? I think it has its own benefits. So there's always that debate whether it's good for people or not. I think the key is to say, what are you doing on it? Is it
what are you using it?
Yeah, exactly. Are you using it the right way, or are you just whiling away time and comparing and just, eventually which leads to insecurity and all of those problems. So I think the way you're using it and how you use it is so key. And I don't think there's enough conversation around that. I think the older generation defaults the mentality of looking at everything from a binary standpoint, right? It's good or it's not.
0-1.
When we were growing up, it was TV.
Right, of course. The junk box.
Exactly. And I'm pretty sure my parents and their their generation would have something else that was considered or looked down upon or considered as whiling away time. Gaming is another thing that
but that's still there.
It's still there. I mean,
the only difference is instead of having to plug in your PS5, you now have it on your phone.
Exactly. It's all instant dopamine hits.
Yeah, exactly. I talk to my wife about this all the time.
Do you guys game?
Not just game, just the scrolling. Dude, a lot of people don't know this, but this is all based on the whole gambling effect or the fact that you're constantly getting these hits, right? So even with your Instagram feed, you're constantly doing that whole rubber band effect by scrolling up to the top and checking to see whether there's a fresh feed, and you see that constantly going up. That's basically like you playing, I forget what the slot machine at casinos. So you're constantly looking for fresher hits, fresher content, and then okay, let me just quickly get this, get through this content, probably help, right? So that's one way to look at it.
I think the root cause for all of that is time. Depends on how much time you have.
But that's the thing. Have you noticed, irrelevant of what you're doing, at least let's take on an average level, right? People always have time to, log into Instagram, or there's no logging in anymore. You just press a button, you're in, and that's it. You don't see anyone logging out. So I have this very weird, funny example where I think my mom used to log out of Facebook every single time. And I'm talking even on the mobile app, which is not how it's meant to be used.
Right.
And I found it quite, surprising. But I also noticed that it kind of gave her a particular period where she would log in and use the app, and then she's out of there.
Right.
So, there's also a barrier of entry issue there too. So that kind of maybe holds you back. I don't know if that was mindful or not, but that's just something she did. Of late, I've reached a point where I just, without even thinking, I just pull out my phone, swipe to page 2, click on Instagram, and I'm look at the number of likes, look at the engagement.
That's because we're used to unlocking we're logging into the phone and out, right? That's a different thing. And I think the older generation's bringing the desktop culture, which is everyone in the family uses one PC. So you have to log in and log on. You don't have a choice. I think that's just a change in consumer behavior and trends. I think I'm starting to see, for example, my mother changing, she's on Facebook. She no longer blogs or logs out.
No, that's not happening with my mom either. I'm just saying that was just the mentality then.
Right. Exactly. And now it's like an evolution, right? You just keep, the trends just catch on. And it's funny thing, I keep telling everyone. So how hashtags were first introduced? It was hashtag. So if you had to say we are the champions or we are champions, it was hashtag we _ r_champions.
Yeah.
And then it became one term.
Yeah.
So
and even camel casing it to some extent,
exactly.
and that's gone as
so
well.
Twitter introduced hashtags. I think Facebook copied it, and I think Instagram and the way people start tagging Instagram pictures changed the way hashtags are used in general. So there's been a huge change, and if you look at it, the way it was meant to be to what it is now, it's changed. So that's another thing with the internet, right? Demand dictates trend, right? And it could be there's no right and wrong way of doing things, and depends on what people embrace and how people like to do.
Probably the easier way, but
yeah, exactly, the easier way, lazier way,
lazier way.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's fascinating, and I think every day there's just so much to do and so many opportunities.
Yeah.
At some point, I feel all of those. I think, for example, social media was very relevant in 15 years ago. Like you could start an app and you had hope that it would turn into something. Those days are gone now.
Yeah.
And I think that's just the thing with the internet. It's just so fascinating. So I often don't maybe I look at things differently because for me, social media is work.
Yeah.
The way I look at it. So
that's why I'm having this conversation with you as well.
So I'm okay 3 days not logging into Instagram. I miss nothing. Like I have no problems.
Right.
But at the same time, when I log in, I'm also looking at it from a lens of everything that I do for work standpoint, right? So I'm scrolling through feed to know what people are up to, what are the way people are putting up content, what's the psychology behind it, new trends, new videos, reels. It's just flooded my explore. I don't have explore feed anymore. It's reels. Yeah. So it's crazy. Something up with the platform. But yeah, so it's just, so I look at it in a very different way.
Yeah.
I look at it from the sense that what's happening, how do I use it for my work, and how do I turn that into an opportunity. I've been very clear. So I've signed up into every single platform you can think of. I was on Vero at one point in time because someone, there was a lot of chat in the Indian internet, global internet space saying it's the next big thing. I said, great, let me go in and see. And I checked out. It's great UI. But yeah, the
still
platform
never
went anywhere. Yeah. So I often don't get into the argument of whether it's good or bad. I can't, in fact.
Yeah.
It'll be very hypocritical of me to say it's bad.
Yeah.
So,
don't use this.
I just stay away from it completely.
Yeah. And even when I have conversations with Karan, so Karan being your roommate and also your colleague.
Yeah.
So he is constantly talking about all these newer platforms and newer places where people are, exploring and trying new things out. And I'm just like, wow. So of course there's that mentality as well. But is that denying that there's a good portion of mindless consumption even 100%. For pretty much anyone today, right?
So true. 100%. Yeah. I think consumption always is mindless.
Okay.
You start making sense of it if you're aware that you're consuming a lot. And if you want to make meaning out of what you're consuming.
But that's the thing, right? So I was listening to this show a while ago where he spoke about how this is the next big addiction. This is the next big cause of depression, or whatever you want to call it, right? It's obvious. But things that people aren't aware of, like you said, you have logged in with a purpose or a meaning saying, I'll use it for so-and-so reason. And the question normally when asked about these platforms is, so I can quit Instagram. I don't need to go on Instagram today. I don't need to go on Facebook today. It's not a big deal. But I'm choosing not to, which is basically the answer you'd get for any addiction.
Right.
So if you think about anything, right, you want to stop alcohol. I can, but why would I want to do that and put myself through that shit, right? But at the end of the day, it's all trending towards the same thing. And it's just like you said, even if you are fully aware, there's still a part of you that's mindlessly consuming. Now, how do you kind of demarcate that, and how do you say it? Because I'm actually in that space. I was off Instagram for 2 years, dude. Completely off. I remember, do you know that? I don't know, but yeah, the fact is, yeah, it's good because I don't know. I just pulled the plug and I logged off, and I was like done. The moment I started my company, I had to maybe log back in, check a few things out. And initial days, I was the one handling it, and then I got team behind it. Again, I was out of it. Now with the podcast, I've got to push content out there regularly, and I'm still kind of forming a team around this, and keeping things afloat. But that's causing the entire scale to kind of tip into this particular side where I don't know how to consume, how to kind of draw the line, because it's all mindless, right? So yeah, so coming back to the question,
I think early days, that's how it is. Even I was there in 2015 when I was desperately trying to study platforms and how they work. So I spent ridiculous hours just consuming content and just figuring out who's doing what. I think you have to figure. I think the right way to do it would be that either you go completely original and say I want no reference points and I'm going to figure out everything 0 to 100.
Okay.
Right. That'd be one way to do it. The other way is saying that okay, I'm going to benchmark 4-5 people who are great creators, who are doing great, putting out great content, who have achieved the fame and have sort of lived through the life that I'm embarking on.
But that's the thing, you can never know the entire gamut of it, right?
But then you just have to go with the gut feeling and say 1 or 2 people I'm going to follow, and then I'm going to figure how are they doing things, and I'm going to try and draw some inspiration from it. But I think you should be limited to 1 or 2. I mean, you should always be open in terms of trying to figure, like just be open to consuming or open to analyzing trends and saying, and not having a closed mind, in fact. But if you try to sort of do everything at once, it's going to be very hard. So you got to start off by saying these are the smallest things I want to do. Like for you, it could be as little as now you're saying editing. So it could be as little as picking up editing, right? And the next thing could be to figure out how do you then become faster at editing. That could be step 2.
Efficiencies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think you got to break it down for yourself. And I think all of this boils down to self-awareness, to be honest. Knowing where to draw the line between consumption and then to actually get out and start doing things. Because it happens to a lot of us. I think it happened to me at some point too, when I was trying to do something new for a while from a work standpoint, and I just couldn't because I was in the consumption mode. And so there's 2 ways to look at it, right? You don't have to be hard on yourself either. You can say that, okay, I'm not ready. I still need to consume a little more for me to understand things. Or the other way of saying, okay, that's it. I stop now and I execute and I come back and then figure what else I can pick up and learn. So I think if you're doing too much, then the right answer would be to just take a step back and say, okay, let me do a little less but do well. I've also been there.
I think everyone's
been there.
Yeah.
I think it's part of life. I think that's
now it's become a part of life.
Yeah. And the topic of addiction, right? I think addictions come out of habits. You got to figure out what is leading you to have that habit and then just change it.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't even know you have an addiction, it's a big problem, right?
Right. Yeah. It is.
Oh God. Because
you have those nights when you're just scrolling and can't sleep.
No. So luckily, no.
See, now you're not there.
Yeah, I'm not there. But that's the thing, right? Especially at this point where I have really long days and I have to handle the business and handle editing and all of this. Because a lot of people don't know I edit my own videos, and there's that part of it, then you're marketing it and all of that. You don't know when you kind of flip from this aspect to mindless consumption, right? And like, for instance, all these places you said where you go looking for something, like maybe to learn a particular aspect of maybe editing or marketing or whatever, right? I use YouTube that way. Just specifically either following only people I need, and it's not a really a mutual benefit, right? The platform doesn't work that way, like the way it does here. Here, if you need followers, you need to show that you can follow unless you've already kind of made it to some extent. And again, like you said, before going down the inorganic path and getting into paid bit, if you have money, great. I mean, you're already, you're well off to some extent. But if you plan to go down that organic path, then you have to kind of get involved, engage, let the algorithm know you're actually there. So I've reached a point where, let's say I've dedicated 2 hours to do a particular task, and I realize, okay, you know what, I need to check something on Instagram. I get on Instagram. And the next second, we're going through random people's food, random people's dogs, random people. So
what they're watching.
Yeah, exactly. Because they're watching me.
Because after a while, it starts to recommend, right? Because that's how algorithm works, right? The more you surf, it starts to draw patterns between where you're spending time and starts to show you that. Like my Instagram feed is filled with football. It's just football news. And like there are times when I get news from Arsenal and Liverpool, I'm like, okay, now I'm done. Like, that's when you leave.
That's when you draw the line.
That's when you throw the phone. Like, so that's for me. But in all seriousness, that happens. That loop is vicious, right? And then you start, and I remember like when Reels launched, I was curious to know Reels. So I started watching them. And now, like, I think, like I was telling you, I don't have the explore option on the feed. That's replaced to, I think search has gone up and so like first day I was like, what the hell? Because my default is to go there and I keep getting reels and I don't like watching reels. I was just watching it for work purpose. But I think again, like I said, right, it draws down to self-awareness, but self-awareness is really hard to come by without experience of doing various things in life. So I would actually tell people just not to be hard on yourself, just consume it. If you want to just be there for 2 hours and consume it, do it. When you realize you have a problem, that's when you probably get onto the correction path. But until then, just go for it. I think every addiction, that's the key, right? You know it's a problem and it's interrupting with your day-to-day life, and that's when you know it's an addiction. As long as that's not happening, I think it's fine. But even I have those days, I told you I'd be like down in 10 minutes. I got into some loop, something. For me, it's WhatsApp actually, more than anything else. I just get so much going on WhatsApp, so I just get caught up in that.
Okay.
But I just feel I think we have too much of the conversation. I think everyone should speak for themselves. I don't think there's enough of that on social media, at least on record. People don't. I think it's just human tendency to just watch what other humans are doing. It's just very deeply driven into our
psyche,
and into society, right?
Yeah.
So everyone does it. So I think back in the day, I'm pretty sure, I mean, even now, there's a lot of community gossip that goes on. Instagram is a version of that.
Yeah.
You're just streaming through and trying to see what people are up to, and then you hear something and then have you, you should try this out. You should just go follow one of those Bollywood photographers.
Hello.
I know. You should do it for a while, right? And you'll see how your explore feed changes. You start seeing all these Bollywood gossip stories of Ranbir and somebody else. It just keeps coming.
Yeah.
So so your feed is a byproduct of what you consume. So I think you should start filtering out from there. So I've had a policy from very early on saying I don't want to follow too many people. I just don't. Less information is great. So I've always kept it. I think until last year I was just following about 200 people on Instagram. It's not like too many follow me, but it's always been in that ratio. So I think now I've gone up by about 80, 90 because I just found some interesting creators. I want to know what they're up to, etc. So but I think everyone needs to draw a line based on what their personality is.
So one thing I want to talk about is you mentioned how you only follow the right kind of people, or at least restrict or draw the line and say I'll only probably consume content from these people or these brands or businesses or whatever, right? But don't you think the algorithm is anyway going to be pushing novel, fresh stuff, so that way you can probably just maybe dip your toes in and see whether this works? Because you see that as well, right? Now the latest feature which I was showing my wife is, I think when you're going through stories, you get 3 suggestions on the story saying, hey, you want to follow this person, which is, again, just different ways of getting the word out there. And this is all based on your habits.
And you get people that you know, right? Or people that are friends with your friends. Or the other thing is WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram is all owned by the same entity. You have someone's number, you text them on WhatsApp, invariably they'll pop up on Facebook and Instagram. It just works that way.
That's what they bought Facebook for.
It is. Data just spills over all 3. So there's a lot more recommendation happening, and I haven't finished Social Dilemma because after a while I was like, hey, this is what I do at work.
So, I haven't seen it yet. I've been telling Apurva that we had to watch it, but
Right. So I know the conversation around it, but it's not new to me because I've just been open. I know how the back end works. So I've never had those problems. But I think it's very key to filter what you want to see because there's too much noise out there. So I think I use different platforms differently. Like on YouTube, I don't mind just getting lost, right? I used to do a lot of that on Facebook videos until I stopped using Facebook as much. But there are videos and there are some times when I don't have anything to do and I just want to know what's trending or what people are watching, and I'm just watching and YouTube or Facebook suggests videos to me. Most of the times it's just videos that I've already watched, but they just want me to rewatch it and stay there.
And you probably will.
Yeah, I probably will because I have time to kill. So that happens. But I think I use different platforms very differently. Like Twitter for me is source of information. And I just want to know what's current, what people are talking about. So I just go there for that. And Facebook, to be honest, I don't even know why I use it anymore. This is there. I think it's just linked to, it's still the funny thing with Facebook is this, right? They know the fact that if you need to use your ad manager or if you need to use the tools that really matter from a distribution standpoint, you have to go to Facebook. So they still got you locked in on that. So maybe that's the reason, but I have Facebook for that. But other platforms, I'm very sort of clear who I follow, who I don't. Instagram is restricted to people I know and people I want to know. Let's put it that way. So for instance, I followed 0 people from Bollywood, 0, nobody.
And that's also because it's Bollywood, so.
I also follow no comedians that I think of now. Because I don't know, if the content is trending, it'll come across. If it's not, then probably I'll go and look for it and watch it when I have the time to do so. But off late, I've been just following some few creators because I think lockdown has really brought out creativity for people.
I mean, come on, look at this.
And I think people have been doing a lot of, I think compared to 6 months back, how things were and how it is now. I think there's just so much innovation and creativity out there.
Yeah.
I want a piece of that. So now I've started changing. But I think restricting the circle to who, it's similar to, I think, the kind of friends you want to have in the real world.
Yeah.
So
it's very subjective. There's no black and white answer to this whole
there
thing,
isn't.
right?
There isn't. I think you do you. Like, what works for you, you use it. Some people just generally love following and commenting and tweeting and all of that. So if they love that, they should do it. I think we have this term at work we use. We call people who just see everything but don't engage lurkers. You're just lurking, right? A lot of people who exhibit that sort of characteristic and trait. So like you don't engage beyond anything that is just core, like that evokes your sort of feeling or something that you want to express. But you're seeing and watching and hearing everything.
Everything.
So there's a mix of both. So there's no real answer to what works and what doesn't. You just have to, as long as you're happy, I think it works.
Yeah. And you mentioned how Facebook is probably the first place that all of this started, and the fact that none of these will run without Facebook. It's like the backbone to some extent, right? Like if you think about it, most people will definitely have an account on Facebook, irrelevant of whether you're using it or not. Either because the trend was that, or like you said, if I have to get active on Instagram and I need a business page, I need to create one on Facebook as well, and then you link it and whatnot. And one more thing I want to talk about is something that people don't really understand, why WhatsApp is still under the same umbrella, and how, the fact that I think we were talking about privacy and all these security issues a while ago too, but the fact that if you add someone on WhatsApp, there's a reason why the suggested friend list has basically that person there. And it's happened to me so many times where I don't know the guy's name, dude. And I'm just like, I know the face and I know the number, or rather I have the number stored, and I see that, oh, this is what his name is. So maybe, send him a request. How do you see these sort of interlinks affecting maybe how we might interact with someone? Because the next topic I want to go to is what you said earlier, right? The kind of friends you choose to have in your real life has now gone onto the cloud.
Yeah.
Right? So we'll get to that, but how do you see this sort of interlinking that's probably going to go a long way, good way, bad way, all of that?
Tell me this, how many times has happened where you've been talking about something on WhatsApp?
All the freaking time. Right? Dude, I've seen videos where, so we have these Google Homes, right? We're just like randomly talking about stuff, and then next second, wait a sec. I was just talking to the person about this. Why is an ad popped up with, an ad for whatever it was I was talking about, which is just awkward. Again, I'm not sure if that is a coincidence, probably not, but yeah.
There's no documented evidence to actually say...
hey, end-to-end encryption, okay.
No, there's actually no evidence to suggest that they use data of WhatsApp for
it's not conclusive.
Instagram.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll ever change until there's government regulation. Because as users...
And you're seeing a lot of that in the States, right?
I think more so in Europe than States. I think there's actual concrete talks of Europe probably banning Facebook.
Even Singapore as well, right? Yeah.
And I think in China, they're all banned anyway. So I think it's built like that for a reason. They want data. Data is like, it's oil in today's world. And if you have data, then you can control a lot of things, right? And you must have seen this with every single app that you use. So one of the things you could do, which I've done, is I think barring the payment apps that I use, I've blocked or turned off notification for every single app.
Yeah. Of course.
Like including Tinder.
Yeah.
You get a notification.
I don't even know how that works. Yeah,
it's too late. I didn't get the notification, right? So I don't see what's happening. But it happens with across. I've done that with Swiggy. So I don't know if he's delivered or reached until he calls me, saying that he's reached here. So I've been very conscious, saying I don't want my day-to-day life to be interrupted by notifications. Simple. And I've taken that conscious call. So and this is also because I feel I'm among the top 1% of informed users, because I do this day in, day out. I've written, we call it notification copy.
Okay.
So you study an app, you study its cohort, and then you define what time periods activity is higher and what time periods you can make activity higher. And you figure out what needs to be done at the back end in terms of prompting a user to open the app and spend more time.
Yeah.
So there are ways to do that. So Like I've gone into that depth, right? So I understand how the entire ecosystem works. So for me, I'm very like non-emotional about it. For me, it's work. And I think it'll be a good thing for most kids and teenagers to probably stay off smartphone in general. Like I didn't have a smartphone till I was 15. Not smartphone. I didn't have a phone till I was 15. My smartphone was at 22 or something.
Dude, smartphones came up way later.
Yeah. My first Android device was at 22.
I mean, we were smart till then.
Yeah, exactly. So we didn't need a phone. But yeah, so I think that's a good thing to sort of practice in day and age. But again, like for example, I've never turned off or gone off social media even for a day. I can, but I haven't because for me, it's part of work. So I look at it that way. But I think that conversation is valid in terms of is it too invasive? Should we be speaking more about privacy? But if you honestly ask me, as someone who understands the entire ecosystem, there is no thing as privacy. Every single app on your phone has the permission to access your gallery.
Everything, yeah.
Has the option to turn on your mic. What's left?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure they read through your messages.
Yeah.
So they know when you swipe a debit card and the message comes in, like it's happening. So there are different apps that collect different categories of data. So I really think likes of Facebook and Google are, I think, the forefront of it because their entire existence depends on it. They don't sell data. They make it optional for people to advertise on the back of data.
Yeah.
So
it's like selling the meta part of the data.
Yeah, so they're not going to change their business models.
Yeah,
because they can't exist otherwise.
Yeah,
and as a result of which, the way social media is structured will continue to exist. It's, I think, a call for users to say, do I want to be on it or no? I think end of the day, it's just convenient. I think what all the apps and social media does, it gives you convenience. If you're willing to let go of it, then great. I mean, if not, then you got to use it.
Yeah,
like I'm super lazy that way.
You'd rather have the system do it for you to some extent.
I book a Dunzo to get grocery like 200 meters away.
I know you. I've seen the Dunzo guy.
Because he'll come up and he'll ring the bell and give it to me. Like I don't have to go. Right? It's so easy. Like and it's funny, right? Because I have not gone into supermarket for so long. I discover products on Dunzo and Swiggy and Amazon and Big Basket, actually even lesser. I actually don't like Big Basket because I order it and there is a time zone in which they can deliver it to you. And I think that's inconvenient. I want it when I want it. Right, and I feel Dunzo is a lot more convenient for me that way. And then there's obviously Amazon because you can't get everything at all times.
But that's what Amazon's for.
Exactly, right? So like sometimes you just have to go to Amazon, you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
So I use it that way. So it's I think to be honest, I think like again I keep going back to this term, right? Self-awareness. You just need to know what kind of a user you are. More and more you understand yourself, you'll figure what's good for you and what's not. And then you'll take preventive measures around it.
Yeah, because the point you mentioned here where it's being done to kind of benefit you is basically how they're selling it to you, yes. And also to some extent that's true. There's no denying that. I mean, see, when something like Facebook or YouTube started, you are probably just consuming 2-3 people because there were probably only 2-3 people on the platform at that point, right? The number of people were just very few. Imagine today you go up there and you find content from your grandma, the grandma's neighbor's dog, and you have everyone's content, and then you don't know what you want to watch, and that'll basically get you off the platform anyway.
Yeah.
And also you miss out on whatever content it is that you come there to watch.
Right.
So I think it does help you to some extent. It's like you said, how you want to look at this baggage.
Yeah, but I think for the next generation, I would say that I think our generation, when they become parents, I think we have a unique strength, which is the fact that we know how all of these platforms actually work, right? So
dude, come on. I don't entirely believe that we're going to use that to our benefit at all. I mean, think about it this way. We have our parents, some of these parents who have basically had the ball, of their life when they were in their 20s or teens, and they've gone out and, partied, done whatever they need. But then the moment they hit their 30s, they're like, none of that happened. But, I know my kids are going to do this. So not even understanding that your kid is being exposed to all of these and there's a mindful way to approach this conversation. It's happening today.
Sure.
So I think even with social media, and probably social media at that point is something else altogether, who knows.
Sure.
But I don't think that's going to happen, dude. I mean, it's
I don't know. Like
we have it, but will we use it?
I'm actually thinking, right? Like, what if I could get my kid to start hosting a podcast at 6, right? By the time he's 16, he's the new Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
I don't need to work after that.
Because he can't earn, it comes to you.
Exactly. So it's all on my account.
Taking child labor to the next level.
Exactly. I'm sure Facebook allows it.
Yeah, dude. I mean, if you think about it, right?
Yeah, but there are a lot of people doing that. Like, there's this father-son duo I follow on YouTube. They just cut things. They just
I've seen that.
Yeah, they cut things.
I've seen that.
Like, I think
and they're trending. Like they're really up there, right?
They've been on for a while. I think I discovered them 5 years ago. So like, you give them anything, and the show's about just cutting and seeing what's inside.
Yeah.
That's it. So
I've seen, I think the episode where they cut open a bowling ball or something on those lines. You know, these.
I've seen a WWE belt. There's nothing like this.
Oh, there's this weird meta joke. It's like they're cutting another cutting machine.
Oh.
Like, what is the world
I'll watch
come to?
that. Now you know the loops, right?
Yeah, no, but you're right. I think the fact that we're equipped with this sort of information, we should ideally be in that, in the driving seat, and we should know how to handle it. But if you think about it, even conversations today, where people have to talk about sex ed or have to talk about anything, right? Anything that's a little taboo. You have to talk about porn. You have to talk about what kids are consuming these days, being exposed to whatever it is, right? Parents don't still do that. And you could say that it's maybe the mindset of how their generation was. But having said that, you still see people who are very forward-minded who don't take up that sort of, that conversation. So I don't even know if this is going to be the case in the future, to be very honest.
But that's always been the case, right?
Exactly.
We've all had friends whose parents were super conservative.
Yeah.
Usually it's ours. And then we've always had parents who always had friends whose parents were super chill and very accommodating and probably had a different way to look at life. And you've always seen those mix. I think real world is the same. There are going to be people who are always going to be conservative. There are going to be people who are always going to be liberal. And they're going to be centrist. You just have to figure out where you are. Yeah. So I think that's, to be honest, a non-event. And that's not only a social media phenomenon. I think most of the conversations today around social media and mental health are not social media phenomena. They are real life phenomena. If you're depressed because you're consuming too much on social media, possibly you're depressed because you're depressed because your life's not in the right track, or if you're
this is like a catalyst.
Exactly. I think there's a great Gary Vaynerchuk saying. He says, social media doesn't change you, it exposes you. So I actually believe in that. And I think being on both sides, to consuming, to creating things
curating,
that act as catalysts to consumption, I sort of know both sides of how it works. I think, the businesses will always try to make more money. And if social media is the easiest path to do that, they will continue to amplify and figure things out on it. So there's no real, hack around it, apart from just drawing a line for yourself and saying, this is what I do and this is what I don't. So I really think conversation around that would be great. Yeah, like turning off notifications is a great thing.
Dude, you have no idea.
I have notifications on WhatsApp turned off. So yeah, but I'm active all the time because I have web open at all times. So I sort of know what's going on at all times. But that's a big start, right? You don't have to, because I treat them all like email. Because I get a WhatsApp message and then I reply to it when I actually get the time to reply to it. But usually I reply fast because I'm always on the go.
Yeah, I think when your business is doing better, let's say from that aspect, right? Because there is obviously some sort of toxicity when it comes to that bit too, where you want to constantly check your mail. You want to constantly check whether this person's replied, whether what are the talks like with the client. So you follow up with your teammate and say, hey, did that person, get back to us? That's one aspect. So even with my consumption, like you said, I haven't switched off the notifications, but I'd say about 85% of the apps I've switched it off. But WhatsApp, maybe certain required or apps I regularly use, I have the DND mode switched on all the time. Ever since I got into, I think maybe about a year ago, I've just been on DND throughout the day. So it started off with DND in the night. And I want to make a video actually sometime in the future where I talk about the benefits, or rather the most important feature in a phone is the damn DND mode, because it literally blocks out, like for instance, I've switched on DND right now, like just as always. So I know for the fact nothing seeps through, not even a sound, nothing. Like for instance with notifications, you have to go there and voluntarily switch off every single one, or you switch off everything at the end, and it's not a smartphone anymore. It's just a phone, like you said.
I just do that at the time I install them.
Yeah.
It's done.
But it's at the end of the day, it depends on how you want to consume it, right?
Sure.
So I like to keep a register of these notifications that come through. So my feed, when I switch on I don't want to call it the feed. Basically, my notifications are basically ones I want to quickly get down to. So like, for instance, Swiggy and Uber and all of that is just BS. It just doesn't help.
Sure.
Right? So, I think it comes down to you. It comes down to how you want to mindfully consume. It comes down to why you're using this. I mean, it's great to talk about it, but there's no denying that we are puppets, and it's just, working to their benefit and made to seem like it's working to our benefit too, to some extent, right?
I think the key may also be in figuring out what makes you feel that you're in control. And if that gives you happiness,
just like anything
else. It's a good
else.
illusion to be in.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
As long as no one bursts that bubble, you're good.
And I don't think anyone would, like, until,
Why would they?
Until you start seeing content from someone you're not following at all.
Yeah.
You don't want to follow.
Yeah.
Like Liverpool for me.
Yeah. So, what do you think the future, looks like or seems like? I'm sure there are, like you said, I think you mentioned an app a while ago. What do you see that might be the trend, somewhere down the line?
In personal brand?
I'd say both. Let's talk about both.
I think corporate brands, I think tons of stuff, because there are organizations like mine who are trying to sell innovative things to brands, right? So they will innovate at every stage. They will try and do new things. But with regards to personal brand, I really feel it's down to the size of the personal brand. Like, can you transcend from becoming being someone who made sketches on YouTube to going to acting in films, like a Mithila Palkar, right? Who's been doing that. So I think it's for individual brands and personal brands, it's more of an evolution down to the path that you're taking. I think there's no real answer to saying that this is how it is going to play out. But I think a lot of innovation will come in. I think more people will start building their own websites once they figure out that social media is not viable enough and it's too expensive. People might start to build their own apps. I think a lot of Bollywood actors, for instance, I think going down that path. They're building their own apps.
Okay.
And there people can engage, and I don't even know what goes on in there because I don't have one of those apps, but I probably should, just to study.
Yeah.
But
just to study.
Yeah, just study. And loops.
Yeah.
It's a new Instagram.
Yeah.
But I think there'll be a lot of that. People are going to sort of try and develop something of their own. I think there's a lot of stuff to still leverage, right? And the funny thing is, no matter how big a personal brand you are, you can't do all of it at once. Or maybe you can if you're one of those people like Tony Robbins or Gary Vee or one of those guys who are so active, who really want to make a mark and be present everywhere. Then yes, then you probably leverage email marketing. You would probably do SMS. A lot of people are doing SMS based stuff now.
Yeah.
Websites are not a given. Having podcasts, having multiple themes or sub shows within your podcast. There's so much that you can do. And also, I think a lot of people are now outsourcing their social media usage. Like, they have a team with them all the time. They travel around and then they do social media for them. Yeah. That's another thing. I think those are the kinds of trends that you will see. But I think it also comes down to what you want to do, right? I think you can be a Joe Rogan that has one big podcast and then is moderately active across other channels. But podcast is like the hero for him. It's what brings all the eyeballs. And then you could take that as Spotify or do it on YouTube, however it works. And then you could be a Gary Vee who's everywhere. Like, he's like...
Yeah, he's literally everywhere.
Right, and it's part of his strategy. So you could be that, and there could be a lot of like Indian guys itself doing, like, I think Beer Biceps is a very good example of how he started with fitness. He moved into I think general mental health and healthy living based conversations. Now I think he's transcending that into I think doing a lot of business based content as well. So you can reinvent yourself if your audience really buys into your personality, like I said in the beginning. Then I think it's very easy to just keep transcending and trying different things out. Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah. Dude, that guy is incredible.
I know.
Like, what is, like, he's selling tequila. Have you seen
He's selling everything. So he's a perfect example. I keep telling everyone, right? I think wanted to be a footballer, couldn't do that. Went to, I think, wrestling, went to movies.
So people should know they're talking about The Rock.
Yeah.
Dwayne Johnson, The Rock.
Who don't know.
Just like, yeah.
People who don't watch Disney movies. Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, he does a lot of, like, he's done that, right? He's transcended. And I think he's the greatest example of that. Of what you can do. And I think a lot of Indian guys also sort of coming and getting into that. I can see them going in that path. Slowly and steadily they'll get there. But it's a long journey.
Yeah.
Very rarely does it happen overnight. Like very rarely. So yeah.
I mean, the only time it happens overnight is if you already have pretty much made it, right? Like you said, Beer Biceps already was well known or prominent in a particular industry.
I think, no, but he was doing it for years. Like,
that's the thing. I mean,
I think 2014 or something.
I mean, there are people who, like for instance, I think Jennifer Aniston got onto Instagram the next second year she has a million and a half.
That's because fame came from elsewhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that always works, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
I think Donald Trump is among the highest followed Twitter accounts.
Really? I mean, makes sense. That guy is pushing out some incredible fiction content.
Exactly. Yeah, but I don't know. I think he's among those, right? I started following him. So it's good fun.
Yeah,
like it's just absolute fun in terms of what all goes on. It's just crazy to think that that's real.
Yeah, like, exactly.
So I think you, like I said, if you have audience, this is the other thing I keep telling everyone. There's only 3 reasons why people follow you. Either you are doing education and information content, or you're entertaining, or you're relatable.
I think we spoke about this a while ago as well.
A while ago. There's nothing else. There's no reason for anyone to follow anybody or anything on any social media. So if you can figure out where you want to be, it's simple. Then I think you're the trends are like this, right? You are either in information and relatability, or you're in entertainment and relatability. Very rarely do people do all 3. I mean, you can, but I don't think you'll be known for all 3. So, and entertainment is what gets you the highest viewership and followers. For the others, it's sort of, you'll be there, you'll have a niche, you'll be like very well known in the mental health space or fitness or food, etc. But you wouldn't sort of transcend and be synonymous with pop culture. That's unique.
No, because even with Joe Rogan, there's a big community in the States that only know him for UFC. Right?
Very true.
And the guy started off as a stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
For the most part, people who have watched shows on AXN know him for Fear Factor. Right? But the fact of the matter is, the guy is doing all of this, and when you see him on Fear Factor, he doesn't come across as the guy who's very knowledgeable, who knows a lot of things, he knows what he's talking about, because he has a different character there. Right? Have you noticed that? But on the Joe Rogan podcast, he is tearing into the other guy, or girl, or whatever, and he's literally
smoking pot. Like, so openly
with Elon Musk.
So I think that's just how today's day and age is. The construct is, right. You could do multiple things and be known in niche for all 3, or be known for everything like The Rock is. So
that is. The Rock.
I'm telling you, even his fame, he owes it to WWE.
Everything else, how he's built up from there, right? I mean, dude, being part of the Wrestling Federation, it's all about acting. It's all about drama, right? And the guy was killing it there. I mean, I still remember those scenes.
Again, it's down to distribution. I think WWE out of 205 countries or 3 countries, I think they're live in 180. Wow. That's ridiculous distribution.
Yeah, what is that?
I don't think any other American sport has that kind of global presence.
Damn.
Not even basketball. So that's just the power, right? I think so. If you have great distribution, then you can. So which is why I was talking about paid media in the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
Where
the call.
Show, right? These days when you do video interactions, it's more like
it's become a call.
So actually, to think of it, first podcast for me, it is during a pandemic. It's kind of cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I know.
And that too in person.
So close to home.
Literally. So people who don't know, he lives right up here. Literally 2 floors up.
3.
3 floors. I mean, okay, that.
One floor counts. So where were we? In terms of distribution, right? That's the benefit of paid media, right? It gets your message out to faster. Paid media means to spend money to promote your content. For those of you who don't know that. So if you spend money on distribution of your content, it gets to more people faster. So then more people know you, and then it just plays out faster. So what you could have achieved in 3 years, you might do in 1.5. So, but you've got to spend money for that. And that's the other thing, right? Platforms are getting expensive every year. So the CPM that I told you of 60 is probably an average that I took in 2018. I'm sure it's much higher now. And I think my take is this, which is Instagram was historically always cheaper than Facebook in 2015. I think that trend will change. I think it's always.
Has it not changed yet?
I think for certain sectors, yes. Certain, no. I think things like lifestyle, etc., yes. But something that's still FMCG oriented or you're doing something very entertainment mass, I think Facebook is still the option. for you to go to. So yeah, again, but I think, so to be honest, right, when you advertise on Facebook and Instagram, it's just one button that differentiates it. Because once you set up your ad, you have a last option saying where do you want to show it, Facebook, Instagram, and then you have sub options within that.
Yeah.
But it's just about just one checkbox.
Yeah.
So from a functionality standpoint, it's hardly makes any difference.
Yeah.
But it's just the overall construct of audience, how the platform functions, what's the demand, how many other people are advertising on it, which leads to define what price you pay. And it's based on a bidding rate, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
So you bid. So you say I will run ads and I don't want to pay more than ₹1. So that's how you do it.
The whole paid bit is something that people don't generally talk about, and I think there is no denying that there is obviously some benefit to it if you want to really get your content out there. Because I've had a lot of people who join my team at Tuckstand, or even with the team I'm forming around this, who the expertise that they bring into a table is on the side of paid promotions. It's on the side of ads. But what I've at least followed, and I believe to some degree, and like I think you mentioned that as well, that you need to get to a point or be publishing content of certain quality before you can really get into paid ads and whatnot, right? It may not make sense for you to do that right from the get-go.
Sure.
Because if you have 0 posts and you're basically promoting your page, I don't know what you're doing. Or you could be a lurker, but yeah. Coming back to this, what is the, let's say the simplest way for someone to take their personal brand across platforms? Like for instance, again, let's not talk about people who have literally made it. People who well-known or famous folks. Let's say we have started off, or let's say I am in this situation right now where I have content being pushed out on Instagram, but I want to eventually get into, let's say, a new TikTok. How is it only by siphoning off crowd from this particular platform to that? Or how does this work?
You shouldn't look at it that way. I think look at every platform as its own ecosystem and then try to build audience within that.
But does that mean you start from scratch?
How else would you start?
I mean, in the sense that you have already gotten to a certain point or a certain degree here. Like you remember, there were these Viners when Vine was quite active, right?
Viners? Is it called Viners?
No, Viners as in the guys who were pushing. I don't know what it's called. I'm just like throwing...
Sure in Vine, but okay.
So Vine people who...
That's very Indian and Bangladesh.
Yeah, Vine creators, whatever, right? See, these guys who... all of a sudden they pull the plug on the platform and they had to figure out other ways. And
TikTok.
Correct. All of that, right? But you notice certain people like I think Rudy Mancuso and all that moved from Vine to YouTube, but they had to leverage it in a way and like you said, really be purposeful of how to push content out there.
So
right?
I think that's again a good conversation to have, right? So if you're a personal brand and a creator, don't over-invest in one platform. I think what happens to most people is people are comfortable with one platform. I've had this with myself too. I'm more natural on Instagram, and I'm very, very careful of what I do on LinkedIn. Also because I think LinkedIn is very pretentious now. Like
LinkedIn stories, do you see that?
Oh shit.
Oh shit.
No, I think stories are fine. I just think the audience on LinkedIn that are active in general don't really have an idea of how to use stories. That's a different thing altogether. Yeah. But I think LinkedIn is probably the platform for bullshit these days. Like people like this, they just take the simplest of topic and turn it into like some fucking
joke.
Not a joke. Like they just make it sound like it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
This is the scenario. What will you do? A or B? And then they'll write about, in my life, from my experience, I think B is greater than A because of blah, 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 blah. Like, it's fucking logic.
Yeah.
Like, you know it, right?
Yeah. And the moment you agree to something, there's someone else who's coming to bite you.
Like, no, and it's funny on the thing, right? So it's crazy. When someone has an opinion, you can either agree or disagree. But in LinkedIn, you have a third possibility, which is they have their own version of that opinion, right? And it goes on.
But you also see that in real life as well, right?
Exactly.
In certain parties, you have these conversations with these weirdos.
Yeah, but they're drunk. Like, what's the excuse on LinkedIn? Like, it's very...
Probably they're drunk.
Yeah. It's very hard. Especially now, right? Everyone's at home, so probably they're drunk. But you just see a lot of that. And like, LinkedIn, I think, is so pretentious. I know that because, of works. You send an email out to somebody over something and you need an approval, you need something, and then they don't look at it. Sometimes they tell you that they don't have time, they don't respond, or sometimes they tell you they don't have time to respond, but they write these long ass articles on LinkedIn, right? Yeah. And I'm pretty sure it took them like longer than to draft an email to do that because you're just very careful of what you put out.
Yeah.
So it's super pretentious. And my favorite LinkedIn influencers are the ones who say, "Oh, you should reply to people, you should do this, you should do that," and then you send them an email, and then you hear nothing for like ever. Like, right? You might as well remove the connection because it's equivalent to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just too much hypocrisy on that platform. So yeah, just coming back to the point, right? So you should just figure what platform comes naturally to you. And actually, rather, you should figure what format of content comes naturally to you. I think a lot of people like to write. They're comfortable with that in terms of articulating their thoughts. Some people can speak. Like, I believe that's something I can do. Some people are comfortable speaking, but without a camera. So they could probably use SoundCloud, Anchor, things like that to amplify their reach. There are some other people who probably do great short micro content like TikTok, for instance. And for them, that kind of platform works. So I think you have to map down and to say what format of content you're most comfortable in producing, and then just go hard on that. And then for the others, you figure something out. I do something. So on YouTube, I was quite consistent before the pandemic, and after that.
You did, yeah, we were talking about this as well.
Yeah, so I do this YouTube show, if I could call it that. I call it Virality 101.
Yeah.
Because it's based on the company. And like the name suggests. So my theme is very clear. I just pick questions of Quora that people would have with doubts or questions with regards to my industry, and then I answer them in a video format. I do like a 20-minute, I think average is about 12 minutes, but I answer 3 questions in a Q&A format. And then I give that to my team, who then post-produce it for YouTube. So I have no idea how do you edit. I think you're like way ahead of me in that sense. Like, I have zero idea.
Yeah. I didn't either till I got around to this. When I realized push comes to shove, I have to do it.
So my editor left, so I just stopped shooting. Like that's what I did. Like, I
take the camera with you.
Yeah, he did. He did. That's why. It was his camera.
Yeah.
So I just stopped like just putting out content. But the idea would have been I would do a master footage for YouTube. Then I would give the same that I would replicate on probably Facebook. I would then give I actually did this during the initial days of lockdown because we had a lot of time. I gave the footage to the team and I said, just chop it up into micro content, right? For YouTube, for Instagram, for TikTok. We could figure LinkedIn. I just get very turned off by that platform these days. I should probably just, that's one platform where I haven't filtered who I follow and who I don't.
That's probably why.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now that I think of it.
Yeah.
It's like a loop, right? Hit me back now.
Yeah.
This is the loop.
Yeah. You go back to your connections and like check them off.
Yeah. Exactly. But just way too many to let go. But I think, but on LinkedIn, I think it's a great organic reach platform. So if you like my post and you like it, everybody in your feed sees it. It's like Facebook 2008. So it's great. So maybe because of that, I just accepted anyone and everybody. And I also thought I'd make some genuine connections, which hardly happened.
I probably because they didn't respond to you.
Exactly. They were busy writing a motivational status on LinkedIn. But I think so. There are ways to sort of figure out content. So in fact, I think you should try and get some interns out of this. They probably give them the audio file of the show.
Yeah.
Just pick out tidbits and write articles on 1 or 2 things that we probably spoke about today. So you can then populate your written, you can have a blog, you can do it on Medium, you can put on LinkedIn or on Facebook, anywhere else that you like to.
Yeah.
So there's different ways to produce content and then to break it up and then to probably say post-produce it for today's social first environment.
Yeah.
So I think there are a lot of hacks around it and a lot of big influencers and content creators are doing that. And if you follow them, you'll see that trend. I think Joe Rogan's an example again.
Yeah. I think within YouTube itself, the guys literally got different types of content.
Right? Because so you're just catering to everybody, right? Some people want to watch for an hour, some people want to watch for a minute. How do you get them both to know who you are and consume your content? And the key is that you should understand the powers with the viewer or the audience. They decide what they want to watch and what they don't. So you'll have to figure out different, say, types of audiences that you have. We call it cohorts in our marketing term, right?
Yeah.
And figure what works for each cohort and then give them that piece of content. That's the way to do it. But I think that would be one hack I would give everyone. So just create one piece of content, you call it your pillar content. For you, it would be the show here.
Yeah.
And then figure out ways to just pick out tidbits and micro content from here.
Yeah, that's basically what I'm doing as well. I think we spoke about this as well, right? I know for a fact what's the kind of content that's going to work on Instagram as opposed to what will work on YouTube. But because like you said, on YouTube, the crowd is very, very extensive, right? Some people are there who love these long form content. And I personally do to some extent, right? Even with this whole YouTube, I don't know if it's called premium or YouTube, whatever the new thing is, right? Where you can lock your phone and still listen to content. And I've reached a point where my consumption is more on the audio side than video, because the kind of people I'm following, it's not really necessary for me to see what the content is, more rather hear it.
Sure.
Right? So I think there are obviously folks like that too, and it's just about you being purposeful, or picking out the right kind of content to target and tap into, and that's basically what you're doing. Of course, there's no denying that for you to ensure that these are independent standalone videos or content as well, you have to put in some effort and kind of come up with something that, because someone finds you, there's no guarantee how they're going to find you.
Exactly.
So it could be any
of
these things.
Take a chance and be everywhere.
Exactly, yeah. Because if one thing, and this is also a bit of a Gary Vee mentality, right? You like, just push content, just go crazy, just like put content everywhere, be everywhere, do whatever you can. Why aren't you pushing content? Shove content. That's basically that guy's mentality.
Hustle
right?
porn.
Yeah, hustle porn. Yeah, exactly. So that's one way to do it. But at the end of the day, you also have to be purposeful and mindful about where you want to tap into. So the question I actually had was what you said. If you can not just restrict yourself to one platform, but rather pick out the right ones, the right places where you think it's going to work, right? How do you kind of do that, especially in your early days? Because these personal brands and individuals who are looking for something like that don't want to really spread themselves thin. Because if you are creating, let's say I'm doing this podcast and I don't want to put in the effort because I know for a fact it takes me 2-3 hours for me to market it across all platforms. Simplest thing is for me to basically just push this same exact 1.5 hour content to every single platform, which doesn't add up or doesn't make sense either. So the question is, how do you do this without spreading yourself thin?
By hiring people to do it for you. That's one answer. Because I think any big creator that you see has a team behind them. Everybody. Anyone who says they do it themselves is just, they're doing it for that period. Let's see how long it goes. It just usually doesn't last.
Yeah.
Because you can't,
it's not sustainable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So either you figure out your bandwidth and say what are the platforms you can invest on, only invest on them. Or you probably figure out what helps you get more bandwidth and then amplify by getting more people in or having more resources or putting money behind promotions, whatever it may be, and figuring out how you can reach more. But if you want a quick answer, I would say invest on YouTube if you are into the video game. Not video game, but video game. Because
it's a nice pun for you.
Yeah. So I'm not a fan of puns, by the way. I think they come in the lowest tier of the hierarchy
Jokes.
of humor.
Okay.
Yeah. This is the bottom layer. It's the easiest. Anyway, it's accidental.
It's like dad jokes, but in a different form.
Dad jokes probably come a level above, just saying. And then comes Phil Dunphy.
That's a different level of dad. Phil Dunphy. Yeah.
So I think you should invest on YouTube because it's Google owned and it helps in overall SEO in terms of visibility. With regards to Facebook, yes, again, because if you want to be a creator and want to be prominent in that ecosystem, you do so. And I think nowadays you have an option of just flipping if your content is in the specified time frame, you can use it on IGTV too, right?
Yeah.
Then the only platform that you really don't have a big say on is YouTube, is Twitter. LinkedIn too gives you an option to upload videos.
Quickly push it to Twitter.
And you can just put YouTube content too. But the key is this, right? You should try and create content natively on each platform. So if you have a video, make sure you upload it on YouTube. If you have a video, make sure you upload it on Facebook. Don't take the YouTube link and put it on Facebook because Facebook does not like that. And Facebook, Google compete with each other.
Yeah.
So Facebook will not promote your content.
Correct.
So there's a lot of that. So you have to really figure which is why the idea of breaking it down to micro content really works, right? Because Instagram, you can do Instagram. Twitter, you can do Twitter. Yeah. So every platform works differently and you can figure out what works. But the funny thing is even brands haven't figured this out.
Yeah.
They usually decide to say, what's the message I want to do? What's the content? And if you really ask most brand managers or people running the larger brands don't really have a great idea of what kind of social media works in what way, at least from a content standpoint. Very, very few people you'll have these evolved conversations with. And I know that because I've spent last 3 years conversing with so many of them. Yeah. So there are very, very few who are doing some great work. The others are sort of replicating templates that work best. And most of them are just going to ask their agency to figure it out for them. So from a corporate brand standpoint, there's no real cut answer. I think something works today, everyone's going to copy it tomorrow. And then that cycle just continues forever.
Yeah, because even with what I'm doing right now, right, I realize that if you're I still haven't started pushing content on LinkedIn, and it's also, up for debate whether it makes sense to do that. But, stand-up comedians are killing it on LinkedIn. That's basically like, I think the top tier guys are stand-up comedians, and I'm saying, oh yeah, so the conversation
after the motivational speakers and and the mental health experts.
It could be mental health comedians. I mean,
it's the same now.
Yeah, no, but
I think Rahul Subramaniam is doing some fantastic work.
Yeah, he's killing it. He's literally cut through the LinkedIn noise.
Yeah. But that's the thing, right? There's a book called Zag. You should try and read it. So it basically fundamental theme is this: when everyone zigs, you zag. So you figure out what will declutter or what will get you attention the fastest way.
Yeah.
So I think that, which is why I said, right, it's very important to pick your niche and figure where you are.
Yeah.
But at the same time, not everyone can be unique, or rather everyone is unique in their own way. So you just bank on that, and then you basically just try to be yourself and just putting out content, and somebody or the other will find value in it. So over time, you'll build that
community.
I don't think Joe Rogan is, from a personality standpoint, is so wonderfully unique. He's just himself, right?
Yeah.
And you find, I think the beauty of Joe Rogan, or why he's grown, is because he can hold a conversation.
Yeah.
He's really good at having conversations.
And he's also literally no holds barred, literally goes in it and doesn't think twice about having that kind of conversation.
Exactly, right? And that's what the internet gives you. It gives you unfiltered content, and which is something that you won't get from other sources. But then again, if you're from our generation, then internet is the only source. So you have to choose within that. But but that's the biggest advantage, I would say, for personal brands over corporates. Corporates will never be unfiltered. They just can't. There's a brand manual, there's a brand guideline, there's a tonality, there's a whole host of rules of do's and don'ts that go with it. And it's monitored by more people than people who actually do the work.
Correct.
Right? So it's just very different. So you will never ever actually be able. So which is why I think personal brands will always grow faster. It's just what it is. And today's 2020 world is about merging the two.
Yeah.
Your personal brand is the business.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that.
Yeah. Because although I'm not looking at making a business on my, let's say, Instagram page, I did think a lot about maybe forming a dedicated page for the podcast, creating a separate page on YouTube as well. But then I realized that maybe my aim is to probably create 100, 150 episodes of the show and ensure that I've kind of covered enough around these topics that I'm trying to really venture into. But then along with that, I'll also want to maybe create other types of content, and I don't want it to not be under the kind of, my umbrella itself. So I've kind of kept it within my personal brand, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
The idea is not to really form a brand at this point, to be very honest. It's to just kind of encapsulate and keep it all together, because it's again effort to have to build things from scratch. Probably it has its own pros and cons as well, but
sure.
I think it really comes down to what you want to do.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, and how you kind of find the middle ground between the two. Yeah. How can one kind of balance something like social media as a career? Because either you could be in the personal brand space, or you could be in the digital marketing space, such as yourself, or you could be someone who's just generally living life and wants to push content out there, right? With the fact that we are seeing all these trends and all of these things happening, because I don't think there's even a minute when people are not consuming or doing something to kind of keep themselves engaged. It's kind of reached that point. Right. Like, for instance, you don't step out of your house without a phone anymore, right? No one does that. I mean, can you think of that? No, but so of late, what I've been doing is I go for these morning walks, which didn't make sense. Initially it made sense, but then eventually I realized I don't need to clear my head in the morning because it's morning. It's fine. I can probably, listen to a good book or the right show. But in the evening, when I have just so many thoughts in my head, I decide to just leave my phone here and I go for a long walk. I mean, that's just a very a purposeful or a mindful activity I do. It might seem a little funny to you, but it is what it is, right? The question I have is, how do you kind of draw the line and find balance among all these things while you also kind of do
again, let's go back to the initial conversation we were having, which is there is no answer to this. I think what makes you happy, you just have to do it. I remember the time when I used to live at home, I would be on phone all the time. They'd be like, you're on the phone all the time. And then I fixed it. I moved out. so you have to just put yourself in environments that really work. And
you didn't move out much, dude. Come on. I mean, people don't know. Yeah, you moved a block. Parents are living in the other block. You're living up here in the same.
But I think, so there's a story behind it. It's extremely hard to find a house in Indiranagar, which is what I did. We found one.
Yeah.
And then the day before we were supposed to confirm it, or
Not so much.
Yeah, like the night we were supposed to confirm it, we lost it because someone else came in the morning and gave the money and booked the place out. So we didn't have a place.
Yeah.
And the people who were supposed to like move in with me were already in transition. So we didn't have a place, so we just had to pick one, and then we picked this, and we just ended up staying there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's just one of those things. It's not by choice; it's by circumstance.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just coming back to this, I think it's down to what people want to do, right? All like again, just goes back to is it getting in the way of things that you want to do? If it's not, then just carry on. I did the screen analysis, right? Of I just measured the screen time. I looked at the data.
Of your consumption, okay.
One of those, I think, a month ago, we can actually look at it right now.
Yeah.
I think a month ago it said that I was on WhatsApp for 8 hours.
A day?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, did the phone even last?
No, I'm like, so I've like, it's crazy, right? I need I don't have a power bank. Like I have one, but I don't know where it is.
Yeah.
But I have a charger in my room in the office. I have a charger next to my bed.
It's ever plugged,
Yeah,
basically.
I have a charger in the car.
Yeah.
I have a charger in the hall.
Yeah.
So, and these are the only places where I spend time.
Yeah.
And the fifth one is a power bank, which goes with me where I go, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, because my work is revolved around that. So I do a lot of stuff on my phone. Like I reply to emails. I make sometimes plans on phone. Like I do a lot of things. So for me, at least, I think I've not felt the need for balance. It's partly because I think it's part of me. I enjoy it. And I think it got to a point where it started to annoy people 2 years ago. And people would make it a point to leave the phone aside. But I think I've come beyond that now. Now I think like I said, turning notifications off was one of those things that I did. And there's so many more other hacks. But if you really look at it, the only times I'm not using the phone is if I am sleeping or if I'm playing football. Apart from playing football and just sleeping, I don't think there's any other period in the day that I don't have my phone with me, or it's in the vicinity, or when it's charging. Like, even when it's charging, like it's crazy. I have different kinds of chargers now. I figured something out on Amazon Basics. It's a 12-feet cable.
Yeah.
Right? Because I used to travel a lot, at least last year, and we would be in airports, and I had to charge in the airport because that's invariably one place where I run out of charge.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't carry power banks because some flights don't let you, etc. So there'd be a whole like herd of people, especially in Delhi airport. It's like there's always people, and you could connect your 6 or the 12-feet cable, and then you could just go all the way like 5th seat and sit and happily use it. And there's an uncle next to you like, oh, ye kahan kharida aapne? And then open up conversations. So I've just planned everything around it so well. Again, it comes down to self-awareness. I think you should know how you live your life and plan everything around it.
Yeah.
But these are few things like work related that I've been able to sort of do. But yeah, I think just going back to the core message, if it doesn't interrupt with your daily life, if it doesn't make you unhappy, just do whatever you're doing. It works. If it is making you unhappy, and if you can't do things that you really want to do, then you need to just sort of step back, relax, figure what is going wrong. And it's always easy to understand. I think a lot of young people have a problem where they're not able to figure out why they're unhappy.
Yeah.
I think it's either not accepting the reality or the truth, or it's not understanding yourself well enough. So it's down to these two. So I think I've been blessed enough to spend a lot of time by myself.
Okay.
In terms of like doing things that are inherently things that I like doing when I was young. And I think that develops self-awareness more than anything else. If you've been always extroverted, then when you grow older, you can't deal with loneliness. And then you default into using Instagram and social media to get that kind of attention and dopamine hit. And that's not sustainable. Then that leads to problems.
Right.
So I think it's a loop.
Yeah, it's
this
all
is the other loop.
There are many loops here. Loop-de-loop.
Exactly.
Because one thing I wanted to talk about, and it actually slipped my mind when we were actually deep in conversation earlier, right, is with all the other, let's say, depression-inducing habits or anything that's going to give you, let's say, lead you into addiction. Those things are very well known that there is a negative aspect to it, right? For instance, like you said, kids these days are given a phone or smartphone right as soon as they enter their teens, right? And they don't understand the sort of impact and how your brain's getting wired differently because you're at such a vulnerable age, right? So it's great to think that you would probably be in a situation where you have self-awareness and you understand that, but the thing is that there's no notion around the fact that this is very toxic. Or I mean, there are things coming out now, but openly, if you're using, let's say, a phone while you're at a party or while you're in a let's say at a dinner table, right? At the same time, if you were probably smoking pot there, people look at you very differently, right? Because there's inherently a very negative side to that. But here, the effects are pretty much the same. If it gets to that point, if you kind of tip over, right? So, I mean, it's easy to say self-awareness, but how do you kind of get to that? Because you might not look at someone else and comment or suggest or guide them on the right path because you probably are thinking they're doing the right thing.
Sure, I think. So I think the use of phone at the dinner table is the most common example, right? And the question is, why does someone do that? It's either because they're sure, I think it's addiction, but also it's around the fact that people are inherently getting more joy out of looking into their phone rather than having a conversation.
And especially at those ages.
Yeah,
right?
But I also, if you look at it, I think people, average teenagers today have a lot more. I think the concept of best friend has gone out of the window. If you look at it, right, it's gone out of the window. It no longer exists. And I think if you look back at it, I think my dad probably in his time had a best friend, and a lot of people do have best friends. I'm not saying no, but I think in today's day and age, you have an average of 3 or 4 close friends. It's looked at that way. It's a group, right?
Or maybe not even that.
It's not even that, but it's more group oriented now than individual. And I think it's a byproduct of being connected with people digitally and having access to, like, say, social groups, etc. on WhatsApp or Instagram, and then you're able to share what you like. So I think the aspect of sharing things that are common interests with people of your same age is happening at a much faster rate. So there are certain merits to it too. There was something I read long back about, there was a debate in the US over bullying, right, on social media. And they spoke about how that's very relevant, and the online bullying, the offline bullying that used to happen is now carried to online. But I mean, yes, there's option to block extra, but it's affecting people negatively. But at the same time, there was a study that suggested that people like teenage girls on average now have 3 best friends versus 1 back, say, in the 80s or 90s. And I think there's a trend there also. So I don't think anyone really has the answer to it in terms of saying that this is good or bad. While there's a lot of people suffering from it and probably, say, a lot of unfortunate things such as suicide, etc. have happened, I think there are a lot of other people who have sort of turned it to the strength and are living a life on the back of social media now. So how do you now blanket, draw a line and say it's good or bad? It's very subjective, right? It's down to everyone the way they use it. So I think, again, I think if self-awareness was so easy, the world would be so different.
Yeah, of course.
It's not, right? And it's a byproduct of doing things. Conan O'Brien has this insanely good, I think, a graduation speech at Dartmouth, 2011, right? He talks of this one line that says it's your, like, he talks of how he idolized Johnny Carson and then Letterman. And it was his goal and dream to become like them. And in pursuit, he failed, but he became Conan. And he talks of that same thesis. He says it is your failure to become your perceived idol that eventually molds and shapes you into who you are. So I think when you realize this, right, and it happens to a lot of people when we grow older, that we become comfortable with who we are. It's not the case when you're young, in your teenage years especially. And I think a lot of it has got to do around parenting. I don't think at the teenage years, it's down to the person. I don't think we've evolved enough to figure it out. But in the 20s, yes, in 30s, you should be able to figure it out yourself. But I think it goes through a lot of exploration of trying different things. Failure is a great teacher. But I don't know if you relate to this, but I relate to this. Sport has given me that, to be honest. I think the experience of winning and then the experience of losing and then coming back and trying to win is just beautiful, right? And spending so much time on the field, playing football and other sports, I think it's sort of inculcated that mindset. And because of that, you are sort of always, like, if you lose, it's not the end of the day. You can go back and play again tomorrow. Yeah. So you think that way. And when you start thinking that way, I think it gives you the freedom to try different things out. And when you keep trying different things out, I think you discover yourself. So I think it stems from the smaller things. But I really, really think a person's personality is actually molded in the early years of his life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the upbringing you have and the kind of group of friends you have when you're a young kid below the age of 10 or a teenager really shapes you into who you are. Yeah. So it's super critical to have had the right experiences in that age. So yeah, and I think just following a passion at the young age also helps you do that. Like I spend most of my time wanting to be a cricketer. Most people don't know, but yeah, digital marketing is very, 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 very far away plan B.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think again, right, the pursuit and then the failure to become who you wanted to be eventually sort of shaped me into who I am.
Yeah.
So I think that adds a level of maturity and pragmatism that is probably lacking in somebody who's hasn't gone through that journey. And I see that a lot. I see a lot of youngsters coming out of college and who apply for jobs. I think over the last pandemic too, I've interviewed so many people. And for me, the measure is always the personality. I try and figure who the person, like what kind of a person they are.
Right.
And if they're inherently driven, they will figure out whatever industry they go to.
Exactly.
If they are not, then it's going to be very difficult for them to survive in any industry they go to.
Yeah.
So I've always felt that I always ask, how was your childhood? What do you do? What do you pursue? What are your hobbies? What do you do after work? I think that gives you an idea of the kind of person.
Right.
And I think that helps you understand the kind of person you're hiring or bringing in, etc. So similar concept, right? And I try to see how many people know themselves well. Some people might say something,
but do entirely poles
exactly.
apart. Yeah.
So it might be very different, and that's fine. I think they just haven't figured themselves out, and they will. But there's no easy answer to. There's no formula for self-awareness.
I mean, there's no formula to any of these things, right?
Nothing. Yeah, there's nothing. I think
it'd be so easy if that was the case.
Yeah,
but
I think it's different. You'll figure it out by doing different things at different point in life. But then the idea is to keep doing things.
Yeah.
I think more you do, more you experience, and then eventually you'll know if you're cut out for it or no.
Yeah.
So that's probably how you experience self-awareness.
Yeah. So with even kids being given phones, right? Do you think that is probably one of the big factors that probably add or is a catalyst to this whole
I honestly don't know. I really don't. I've not had kids.
No, but would you know even at that point, right? I mean, would we be in a position to really judge?
I don't think kids know themselves, right? But
they don't. I mean, but like you said, they're not to blame if something happens in their teen years.
Yeah,
right?
But I don't think I would give my kid a phone until they're 13, 14. I just wouldn't.
13, 14?
Yeah, okay. It's fine. I think if they want, so assume if I do get them to do a YouTube show.
Oh, so that's still on the card.
That's still on the card. That's not going to change. I'm going to get them to do it, and then I'll get the post production around it, and it goes published. Like I'll do the producer job, but they're not getting the phone to like do any comment and engage with the audience on that.
Yeah.
So like it's just I think until the age of 13 you should just figure yourself out. You should just do your stuff. What you want to do.
Yeah.
And I think I've always noticed this. Most kids who've grown up in an army family just seem to be a little more mature. And I always think it's reasonable because they have moved around a lot during their childhood. So they've gone to different schools, different
adaptability.
Colleges. Exactly, adaptability. That adds to it. And then there are people on the other end too who sort of haven't done any of that, who's just stayed in the same place for the longest time, been with the same group of friends, etc., who have also been very mature, etc. I think it's a very difficult thing to say, right? I think, but I will always say that maturity is the first sign of being self-aware. Then you just are a little mature than the rest of them. So, and that comes out of just having enough and having done enough and having experienced enough. So again, that would trace back to just doing a lot of things. But in the case of kids, I think at that age, you really, I don't know. I think it's an experiment. Giving a kid a phone when they're 6 or 7. Yeah. I'm sure they do it. I mean, I know a lot of kids know how to navigate through YouTube and then to switch Netflix into kids and all of that, which is great. I think that's equivalent to us how we used to use TV back in the day, right? We knew all the channels.
PG.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I just generally don't think that giving someone a social media account sub 13 is the right answer. And in fact, even the basic, even Facebook, I think has certain regulations around it. For example, I don't think you can advertise to people under the age of 14, 15. 13, I think is the number. And in fact, I'm not too sure what's the age for having an account. I started mine at the age of 14 or 13. So I don't know what the
I think it's just when you create a Google account, it's basically that, right?
Yeah, yes. But I think you have to input your age. I think I've never had to check this because it's not been a topic that I've ever had to be concerned with. But I just don't have an answer to it. I don't know if it's right or wrong. I think parental supervision is great. I think how kids turn out is a reflection of how parents parent them.
Yeah. The upbringing itself, right?
Yeah. For instance, I got a lot of freedom. I could do anything and everything I wanted. I don't think that's necessarily the case for everybody else. Some people had to go home at 7 o'clock sharp. Couldn't play beyond that, right? A lot of people had it.
Yeah.
My parents were okay with me staying late as long as I didn't get pulled up at school for doing something or not finishing work. So I think there's a lot of parenting and maturity that leads to self-awareness. I don't know what the combination is, but I think that's a very good topic to have conversations around, which I don't think are done enough.
No one wants to talk about these things, right? Because it's a very, it's like you're talking about philosophy.
Or there isn't much to talk about. Because they probably were doing things that were told to them by their parents when they were young.
Yeah. So or trying to do something that they don't want them to know either.
Exactly. It could be that also.
Yeah.
But I don't think people have enough of those kind of conversations in the first place. Maybe that is one thing that social media has taken away. The opportunity to have real physical conversations.
Actual conversations.
Yeah, maybe that's something that's missing.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I think people are watching more podcasts. So probably people are watching us having a conversation rather than having it themselves.
Do you want to talk to us? No. Okay.
Yeah, we could. Not today though.
Yeah.
Some other day.
Some other time. Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of that. So that conversation conversations around that would probably help.
Yeah.
But with kids, to be honest, there's no answer to that. I at least don't know.
Yeah.
I at least haven't experienced it.
Yeah.
At any level.
Yeah.
But I think there's pros and cons to it. Yeah. I've seen both.
It's with most things, right? That's just how it is. You have both sides of the coin.
Yeah,
it's how you use it and how you leverage it.
Like you scroll back 5 years to the stuff that you post on Facebook and you feel, oh shit. The
cringeworthy days.
Yeah. So imagine kids doing that, right? And like I think there was something I saw of some father-son do where I think it was Will Smith and Jaden Smith, where Will Smith was like, I was stupid, but I didn't have an avenue to go and put it out there. My son does. And the funny thing is, it stays stupid, So
and so he is.
Yeah. So I from that point maybe I think, but as long as it's not a platform where you can't remove anything. Imagine if there's a platform where you couldn't, like Twitter. I think you can't edit tweets.
Is it?
You couldn't.
Okay.
For a while, I think you still can't edit tweets.
Yeah.
So you have to delete, or you have to just whatever it is, leave it once published. So there's a lot of that. So as long as platforms are not that rigid, maybe it works.
Yeah.
But with kids, man, no answer. Like I have no idea how that is. They're just,
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone once said, kids are just people on acid.
Yeah. Oh man, that's true. Yeah. So it's something I ask of all my guests, which is where can people find you online?
Great. I'm on every platform. My full name, if you have that.
Yeah, I'll put.
Great.
Yeah, I'll put that up in the show cards anyway.
Great.
Yeah.
So it's Saanand Warrier on all platforms except maybe Facebook and YouTube, because YouTube is Saanand Warrior. Now I've sort of lost track.
Chill, dude. I'll include it. Don't take tension.
Yeah. So I'll send that to you.
Yeah.
But I'm everywhere. The other key thing is, so the more social media platforms you're on, better the Google search result for your name. So, because Google pulls data from everywhere.
Yeah.
So remember that.
Yeah, nice tip. And if there's one last message that you want to put out there for the viewers, the listeners, what would that be?
This is something I thought about, but I don't think I have an answer for.
Okay.
It's funny, but I think do more and try and sort of discover yourself, because if you can do that, then you sort of experience it. And I think the theme of today's talk was more about self-awareness and how you judge what's good for you and not. And that only comes out of doing a lot of things and doing newer things and failing at it. So do more and fail.
Yeah.
And then succeed.
Yeah. Strive for something and then probably succeed with something else, but still, yeah. It's great, dude. Thanks a lot for making time for, coming down from the 5th floor.
I know. Thanks for having me and letting me wear shorts.
Yeah, both of us are wearing shorts, by the way. You can't tell, but...
I refuse to do the show otherwise. So.
Yeah. But thanks, man. Yeah. This is great. And I think because you're right here, barrier of entry, right? I'll get you here again. It's that easy to, talk about so many other things.
Whenever. I'm more than happy.
It's become people on acid. If that makes sense.
Not literally.
Yeah.
You can just go out. You'll find many.
Oh, yeah. A lot here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool, man. Cool. Thanks, dude.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Let's wrap up.
So what do you think? Do you like the episode? I did tell you that it was a little abstract, a little meta, but at the end of the day, this is things that we don't normally talk about, and I feel society today really needs to be a little more particular about the people they follow, the kind of platforms that they're on, and why are they even on these platforms in the first place. So like Saanand mentioned, he's on it because that's just his job. He's looking at different accounts, understanding the trends, figuring out the right ways he can add value to his clients. But you as a consumer, or even me for that matter as a consumer, really needs to be very purposeful about the kind of people we follow and the kind of content we consume. So I'm hoping that this really gives you the push that you need to get your foot in the right direction. So if you prefer content on these lines, something a little more meta, a little more abstract, as opposed to maybe a mix of these topics alongside someone's journey, then let me know in the comments below if you're tuning into the episode on YouTube. But if in case you're listening to this over audio, then consider dropping me a DM or a message on Instagram, and I'll definitely get back to you with my insight and whether we can make that happen. Also, while you're at it, please do follow me on Instagram, because I have a lot of tidbits and these small gyans that I push out there. Basically just mini form content, smaller content from these episodes itself, along with a lot of personal content too. So that this is something that you feel interests you, take a look at my feed and consider following me there. All links are mentioned below in the show notes, on the description, depending on wherever you're tuning in. All right, I guess I'll see you on the next episode. Ciao, bye-bye.